And then time went on, and then the snow melted. And when the snow melted, I said, well, I think I might have an answer. Because everywhere I looked, I saw potato fields. And then I looked back to the winter when I was driving along Highway 2, and I would see these drifts go strewn across the highway, and along with that, red dirt. You know what red dirt means? And that didn't occur to me when I first saw it. Red dirt means dead soil. Okay? Dead soil is caused by chemicals that kill the organisms that give cohesiveness to soil. If you've ever gardened and dug up worms, you see the soil around the worms. It's black. It's sticky. Okay? But dead soil is not, because there are no organisms there, okay, to hold that soil together. So it just blows away. Okay? Something killed those organisms. Okay? And going back, that something is driven by corporations. Now, I proceed to extraordinary observations. Now, in neighborhoods, my investigations reveal that 30 to 50% of neighborhoods right in the Alberton area had at least one person with cancer. 30 to 50% of households in one neighborhood. Now that to me was just incredible. In Hamilton, in Toronto, where my aunt lives, nowhere where I live have I ever heard anything like it. Never. Okay. Right here in Alberton, there's a neighborhood. A little over 30% of the persons were affected by cancer. 30% of the households had at least one member, and one of those adult females had had cancer twice. And if we go along the East Mill River Road, I did statistics on that. Up to 50% of the households had cancer. What's really interesting, as you go from Cascampet Road, the incidence is lowest, and as you go towards Mimini Gas, it steadily rises, and reaches 50%. Now, reason for that, I'm not exactly sure. I have a theory. But I'm not going to go into that this time. It's not permitted. I don't want to make a presentation. Okay, renal cell carcinoma, primary kidney carcinoma. Now, I'm talking about extraordinary observations. We had, when I was at the Western Hospital, 5 people with primary renal cell carcinoma on the ward at the same time. I don't think you're going to see this anywhere. 5. Now, when I was in Nova Scotia, I've been there for 7 years. Okay, I have seen maybe 1 case of renal cell carcinoma that I can recollect. Here, but in Alberton, we had 5 at the same time going on. At another time in Alberton Hospital, we had 2 males, two potato farmers, as a matter of fact. One in his 40s and one in his 50s. Both had primary brain cancer on the floor at the same time. Now, one of those, I had another patient, he was in his 40s, he was a male, and I found out, and I saw him walking down the hall with his nephew, and the nurse told me that this male patient, his brother, and that boy nephew he was walking with, carpooled to get their chemotherapy in Charlottetown. These 3 people, 2 brothers and the son, were carpooled to get their chemotherapy in Charlottetown, one family. And that is not rare. I have, in my research, I've heard of up to 14 people in an extended family with cancer. Incredible. This is scary. I do not know why it does not scare you folks. You know, your church is falling apart. Our church is falling apart. Something has to be done about it. Who's going to make the donation? Who's going to put forward the effort, the time, the money, whatever it takes to put our church back together? I traveled to Charlottetown one day, and I walked into a Harvey's. Then I learned of a boy. A 12-year-old boy in Charlottetown with primary liver cancer. This is rare. Again, we're talking about oddities. We're talking about bizarre incidences. We're talking about things that should not be. Then another time I visited the Department of Pathology at the Queen II, because I want to see what these fellows have seen. I'm curious. So I became good friends with one of them, and he added other oddities to the observations I've already made. 2 or more tissue types of cancer in the same person. He said this is very unusual. I have seen this in 7 years 1 or 2 times in Nova Scotia. 1 or 2 times. Children with adult cancers, such as that case of acute myeloid leukemia, which is rare before the age of 40, but a child had it. And adults with children's cancers, such as acute lymphocytic leukemia. Bizarre occurrences. So one of the things I did, with the help of my friends, I went out to investigate the environment myself. Now, you realize that I'm working about 80 hours a week, but I felt that I had to do this anyway, and I was driven to do this. And I mentioned the dead soil and the red soil that was strewn across the road. That is strewn across the road because the wind can just pick up that soil. It is dead. The bugs in it have been killed, and it just flies freely. You've all seen it. I'm sure you've all seen it. Okay, another observation I made on the same topic. I drove around a lot on a PI, and at a time when they're tilling, and you probably noticed this, but you probably didn't notice what I was looking for. When I was looking at freshly tilled soil or soil that was in the process of being tilled with the tractor out there, an observation I was looking for, and an observation that I saw, there were no birds. There were no birds on that land. There were no birds on that field. There were no birds behind the tractor. What does that mean? Even the birds know that there are no bugs in that soil. They don't bother. Okay? That is scary. That is dead soil. So, I decided, with the help of a farmer out in West Prince, to go up in the air and actually have a look at West Prince. And what did I see? I saw potato fields everywhere, and you would not believe what I see. There are pictures posted on Facebook. I think it's on Cancer Talk Show, which is a group I started. And there were literally potato fields everywhere you could see. There are potato fields around the schools. There are potato fields around the hospitals. The town just west of us, what is it? No, there's not. O'Leary Hospital, surrounded by potato fields. What's that town of Spanish speech that starts with E? It's not important. It's what? Elmsdale, that's it, Elmsdale. Elmsdale, surrounded by potato fields as far as you could see, right to the edges of the camera lens. Potato fields. That the people in Elmsdale have no chance. There's no way of escaping. The people in those schools have no way of escaping it. The people who work and are patients in the O'Leary Hospital have no way of escaping it. There is no escape on this island. What I saw is even the little islands of PEI were covered with potato fields. This is crazy. Little islands. They go to the trouble of even cultivating the little islands. They have to get to the little islands, take their equipment to, tell it whatever they do, and then spray it. So this is because the corporations are using as much of PI as they possibly can, every inch they possibly can. And in terms of barriers, this barrier between, we have all this law, right? That there's got to be a minimum distance between the edge of the potato fields and the river or any other sorts of water. That's a joke. Because if you go up in the air, there are not these barriers. Yes, maybe here and there might be the barriers, but I said, look how close that is to the water. Now, one of the things that masks the fact that these potato fields is so close to the rivers are lines of trees. Because at ground level, it kind of obscures what's going on. But when you go up in the air, you see how, when you see above these trees, and you see on both sides of these lines of trees, and you see how close it is. And even if these barriers were met, okay, that's a joke, because some of these farmers use underwater drainage systems under the land, okay, and the water and the drainage from under the soil runs directly into the rivers, directly in, okay? So even this barrier is not going to do very much, even if it was followed. Okay, then Bruce mentioned fish kills, so I don't really need to do it. We're all familiar with the fish kills every year in the Dump River, especially there are thousands of fish that die. And this happens, and this becomes such a commonplace thing that it's considered the norm, I guess. And it really isn't the norm. It's a reflection of something bad that's happening on this province. Our church is falling apart, going back to Malcolm's joke. Government response to fish kills, what did they say about it? Well, this is interesting. Each time the government reported trace amounts of chemicals in the water. Now, first of all, they did not list the chemicals they were looking for. They just said there were trace amounts of chemicals, okay? And the other thing is, a number of these chemicals, as soon as they hit the water, they start to change. So if you go looking for chemical A, by the time it's tested, that chemical A is already a ghost. Okay, you're not going to find chemical A because the ghost is already gone. Okay? And unless you're testing for the ghost, you're not going to find chemical A. Now, the reports. Bees, lines of bees along the side of the road. Ducks, lines of ducks along the side of the road. Lobsters, dead lobsters on the shore at the mouth of rivers. Okay, these are all reports. And there's the reports of freakish fish morphology, and I believe even frogs. And I've done research elsewhere in the world, and there's similar reports of freakish morphology in aquatic animals, fish, frogs, etc. And this has been reported here on PEI, such as fish with double sex organs. Okay. This, again, I emphasize, these freakish, okay, I've been cut off. These freakish events are driven. They're made to happen. They're not happening by accident. They're made to happen. Okay, there's a cause. Okay, I'm going to go into interesting tidbits, and this is going back to a little over 7 years. I met Mr. Eric Clements, who's sitting right over there, a very, very dedicated gentleman, okay, who was involved with the water tables of PEI. He's doing that for a lot of years, and he became obsessed, much like I did, with what's going on in the water tables. He studied the nitrate levels in the water tables of PEI. Now, nitrates, nitrogen, which are the main atom is nitrogen, okay, come from fertilizer. So I sat down with Eric and I asked him about the nitrate levels in the water tables. And he said, one of the things he told me is, he was studying nitrate levels. I was studying cancer. And I said, this is really interesting. If the nitrate levels are from the nitrates from fertilizer, but that fertilizer, the levels of fertilizer should also parallel the amount of pesticides that are in the water. So it's a marker. The nitrates, to me, are a marker for the pesticide, the level of pesticides that are being used. So Eric pointed out that somewhere around the 1890s, I believe, there was a blip. I call it a blip, where the nitrate levels in the water tables of PEI went. I said, that's interesting. Okay, now, if there's a blip in nitrogen, if you can follow through with this, the blip in nitrogen levels, nitrate levels, okay, that would reflect, it's a marker for the amount of pesticides that are being used. if the pesticides, there was a blip in the pesticide use, there should also be a blip in cancer on PEI. So we put together a bunch of data, including the Canadian Cancer Society data, you know, from PEI.
And the two provincial registries.
And the two provincial registries, and we sampled all this, and Eric, he did like 90% of the legwork on this, you know. And he's an underappreciated man, but he does marvelous work, and he's marvelously dedicated. Okay, and what we got, and I said to Eric, if I am right, his graph of the nitrate levels in the PEI aquifers over time, and my graph of human cancer on PEI, they should overlap, if I'm right, if there's a connection. And guess what? They overlapped. There was the blip in cancer on PEI corresponded to the blip. Of course, with a time lag, because cancer doesn't occur.
Can I explain, John, how we were able to get to that timeline?
Can you keep it down to about 1 minute?
This will only take me a second. Yeah.
A second, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, what we did, we do environmental research. We took all the government documents and we put them under forensic examination, you know, as a criminal, criminology. And what we found, what we were able to do was take the nitrate levels that ended up in groundwater in 1996 and then correlate them with the economic or the environmental action plans that was being done by the provincial government 5 years prior. So we were able to line the economic development straightly up with the environmental contamination. So because most environment or economic action plans are built in 4-year stage and then they're injected into the system for the next 4 years by the governments. So what we did was lined everything up. So we knew exactly who was pulling the strings and who would. So we weren't going after the elected politicians. What we were interested in was the bureaucrats and lining these guys up. These guys were making the decisions, and the local politicians would have to answer to it. So we were able to line that up and get an exact diagnosis. So it's mathematical. So it's built on calculus. So it's a calculus equation. So it's a computer program similar to the way you build a program for a school bus. It's a 10-year database that allows us to use forensic trace evidence to go back and forth through the government documents to get a diagnostic program built. So I just took all the university students in the area over the past 12 years that was interested in doing a thesis on my work. And so collectively, we took all the intelligence of the students in the area over the past decade and collectively built technology for the people. So it's ready. It's ready to go. It's ready for the RCMP to investigate.
Thank you very much. And Eric, I'm sure thanks you also. He is very under-recognized, but you will be hearing more from his research and his work. He's a very generous.
One more thing, the University of Guelph and the University of Calgary has already agreed to publish the work. In fact, we've been waiting for 3 years to get publication so we can get it in the hands of the RCMP. They won't touch it until we do. So, but anyhow, continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Eric. Okay, so my comparison with Nova Scotia experience. I left here, I went to Digby, Nova Scotia, which is at the south end of Nova Scotia, and I've been there for 7 years. I was here for 4, and I saw an insane incidence of cancer. I call it insane. I called it that in 2006 and 2003, and I still call it that. And I compare it with my subsequent 7 years on Nova Scotia, and my opinion has not changed one iota. Okay. Yes, we have cancer in Nova Scotia, but you do not see the oddities. You did not see the bizarre things you see here on PEI. Now, I was going to, I wasn't going to mention this, okay? But since it was mentioned by Bruce, okay, he said, why do you accept this? Why do you accept this? I don't understand how you can accept this. In the letter that the second opening letter that I wrote to this media person, And I do not, I'm saying this at risk because I do not want you to take it the wrong way. I am not insulting the people here. This expresses my frustration, okay? And Bruce kind of opened this. There's a paragraph that I left out of my talk. I am frustrated that the people I have stuck my neck and professional future on the line for do not help me fight this battle. 99.9% of Islanders are watching me to see what happens. I've yet to glean why a personal life versus death issue remains an outsider's battle. Okay? I'm going to close my synopsis here with a paraphrase of a quote that is attributed to several gentlemen, including Aristotle, and including Edmund Burke. And that quote is, "The greatest supporters are evil, okay, are good men that do nothing." Okay? Please do something. Please help us put our church back together. Thank you.
This system automatic, we didn't need a timekeeper, Andrew, because this system automatically times you out. It says you've had enough. No, I almost want to say while you're still standing that Pesticide-Free PEI has organized this event, and we're glad you came. But Dr. Ron came from a long way away, and what we were going to do was pass a hat. Now, some of us thought a hat about this big would be enough. I thought maybe this one here would be enough, but we found a happy medium over there at the Citizens Alliance, because the Citizens Alliance just brings people together. So this is the hat we're going to pass. And what we'd like you to do, we understand your children probably already took all your cash from you, and I'm sorry about that. But what we'd like you to do is please put something in the bag so we can pay for the gas, and we really appreciate it.
Something before people leave.
Oh, we're gonna have questions, and we're gonna, yes.
One message for everybody.
Sure.
To add. Can I?
And so you are,
To add. I'm Klaus.
hi Klaus.
I live here since 2 years.
Yes.
And I want to add something to the soil was mentioned and the water was mentioned.
Yes.
Nothing was mentioned in the air. And I have an important message for all of them about the air.
Okay.
Pollution.
Absolutely, there.
And no PI knows it. Can I mention it?
Klaus has something to mention about the air. We're gonna do that, and we are gonna have some questions after.
Hi. No bombs to be thrown onto PEI. I live here with my wife. We moved here, like Dr. Ron, 2.5 years ago, and we find it as paradise. We lived in Toronto first for 40 years. Industry, I worked all my life, and total air pollution and gases and everything, but I didn't meet anybody who died of cancer. So we moved to PI 2.5 years ago. The first summer we saw, when we drove from the west end, which is Wellington, Avon Village, to Summerside, I saw all these white stripes on the horizon. Beautiful blue sky and white stripes. Parallel, crisscross, white stripes. Feathered out, disappeared. Next day or 2 days later, we drove again to PEI, to Summerside, and the same stripes, all over, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. Crisscross. I heard about stripes before. I heard about chemtrails and contrails. Contrails, I learned this as a little boy at school, are condensation trails created by liquid in the air and on turbulence in the wings. That's contrails created by planes. I read some other things 2, 3, 4 years ago, chemtrails, chemical trails are being sprayed into the air, chemicals sprayed into the air, and they're metered from containers through pipes and pumps into the air, metered to create poison, to kill people. They use them in Vietnam, they use them in all over the world, and now they test these things in Europe and the United States and Canada. Chemtrails are white stripes, they they follow the planes. You see the little plane in front, and after the plane it's a white stripe, which doesn't disappear. A contrail disappears after the plane and goes with the plane and disappears. A chemtrail stays in the sky. So a year ago, it was just before Easter, we drove to Charlottetown. The whole sky was on a holiday, which has been Good Friday. It was on a Good Friday last year. The whole sky was full of white stripes. In the morning, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. We came to Summerside, and I stopped at the police station. And I got I said, who is in charge here? I need a complaint. I want to mention there are chemtrails out here. And he said, I don't want to mention his name. I'm in charge here, and what do you want? I go out with you and say, I said, you see these stripes, what are they? He said, contrails. I said, they're not contrails, they're chemtrails. They're poison being sprayed on PI. The whole sky is full of these poison. I noticed this over a year now, the poison comes and comes. And everybody I talked to said they are contrails. Nobody in PI ever went to school and heard there are chemtrails available. Nobody, no doctor knows chemtrails. The chief health inspector from PI, Dr. Heather Morrison, wrote to us back and said there are no chemtrails here at PI. We complained about chemtrails and said, how do we protect us in the air? You outlaw smoke, you outlaw any other bad poison, and we cannot protect us from these which come down, 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 down. So I'd like you to see at the sky sometimes. We talk to farmers, everybody says, oh yeah, we watch them, they're good, they're good. They're all from planes coming from there to there. There are no planes there to there. If you go on internet, contrails are known, nobody knows who does it. They're big jumbo jets, totally empty, with containers and pumps and everything in it to spray poison. PI is being used as a test ground because we are perfect. We are living on an island surrounded by water, and that's it. I have to close. Watch out for chemtrails. This is another poison adding to water and soil. Bye-bye. Thank you.
How's my bag doing? Give it around. Excellent. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So, I introduced pesticide-free PEI when we first got here. I want to say there's a couple other groups also involved with organizing and other places how you could get involved. And we don't need to come here and tell you what to do, but we want to say pesticide-free PEI is looking for people to get involved right across the island, and if you want to participate with us, please talk to somebody here. We've got your email address. We'll have another meeting. We'll send you a note. We'll get you in the loop. Over here we have a couple of displays. The one right closest to the door is from Cassandra PEI. Now, if you haven't been following Cassandra PEI, you need to. You need to do it right now. What they've done, who's here from Cassandra? I think Daryl's here. Anyway, there's some people here from Cassandra PEI. They've compiled information from government publications that go back as far as 1953. I think it's 1953. They go way back on all of the solutions to all of the problems that we have, and these documents compiled by diligent scientists working for us and then completely ignored at the policy level. What you're going to see at Cassandra PEI, and you can see it over there at their display, are charts and graphs, real figures, real statistics from our own government. So Cassandra PEI. And then next to Cassandra PEI, we have, did anybody go see David Suzuki and the Blue Dot Tour? Right. So the Blue Dot Tour is about environmental rights. Because we have a lot of rights as Canadians, we have just a ton of them. Thankfully, they're enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. However, we do not have any environmental rights. David Suzuki is working to Because the last thing that he's doing is to try and enshrine environmental rights in our Constitution, in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.